Good morning, everybody. Second DCA show of the year and the first one with CTO. CTO's back. Happy New Year.
Yay!
We have Marty and Mando. The whole gang is here today. We're going to talk about all of the crazy things going on in the crypto world. With day 57, literally, where Bitcoin is still floating at that kind of 91K, 92K level. 57 days. So something weird is going on. Either there's very slow selling combined with very slow accumulation, but it's very unusual to see it so stagnant for such a long time. We'll dig into that and so much more. But before we do, links below for this whole gang. And we're streaming on all each other's channels. And we'll get into the good, the bad, and the ugly news today. Mando, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Sideways price action, but everything's good.
Awesome. And welcome back, CTO.
Thank you. Great to be back next season.
In purple. Is purple the color? Because I know your color scheme, maybe your lighting makes Mando always look like he's in purple, but he's not.
I'm trying to match Mando.
Yeah, you are in purple. And of course, you have Marty Party with...
How are you guys?
I can't read what's on your T-shirt, but it looks like Asian writing.
Oh, it's Bitcoin. This is a Bitcoin in Japanese. 21 million.
Very nice, very nice. We will talk about 21 actually today as well in the show. So let's jump in. We have a lot of ground to cover. This one's called Scarcity Beats Abundance. And there is this interesting theory that we'll get into in a minute. But first, let's talk about the case for Bitcoin. And again, last week we mentioned the term Venezuela, like we're all pro-war, like we all have a dog in this fight between whatever happened with Maduro. We have no dog in this fight, so we're not getting things heated. What we do care about is the impact of these geopolitical events on markets. That's why we talk about them. I want that to be very, very clear. People were saying very weird stuff last week. Anyway, this is an interesting point from David. And Mando, I'd like your take on this, and maybe Marty too, and CTO. Venezuela just proved that the Bitcoin bull case, and no one is paying attention. Maduro used Tether to move 80% of Venezuela's oil revenue, billions in sanctions, evasion, etc. Then the US made a phone call. Tether froze the wallets. What do you make of this, Mando? Is it safe to, as a sovereign, to move your money around using Tether?
Tether can freeze. That they've shown that they can do that. So I don't know. They didn't really used to do this that much, and then recently they've started to do it a bit more. Strangely, actually, USDC has been criticized a little bit more for not freezing this sort of stuff. So I agree that Bitcoin does not have this issue, as does some of the other proof of work coins. So if Tether's trying to cozy up with the US a little bit more, right? They hired Bo what's his name again? Bo Hines, and they're looking to kind of go onshore, at least in Europe and US, with more compliant versions of their stablecoin. Like, there's a chance that Tether's going to be doing a bit more of this the next few years.
See, Marty, what's your take on this? Without getting too political.
First of all, let's a big shout out to David, my friend David. He's excellent. He's in oil and gas. His business, they mine Bitcoin with excess gas. That's his business. He's extremely knowledgeable. He's just putting out banger after banger. I think he's dead on here. All we are, I call it the purge. We're going through the purge right now. That is all criminal behavior, all criminals, all Bitcoin and crypto held by criminal organizations will be policed, removed. And this is just another step in the way. Tether is exerting for, they've frozen 1,000 addresses historically. This is unprecedented. This shows you that, you criminals, you can't use Tether. I think it's a great show of strength from Tether, obviously with pressure from OFAC and the Department of Justice. But, PDVSA, which is the Madero's oil company, has been, using Tether to bypass sanctions, specifically on Tron. We must make that clear. This is on Tron.
Correct.
90% of these frozen addresses were on Tron. And this is what we knew would happen. You can't use crypto to do criminal things. It's been pushed that way for a long time, and until I think we're being held in an 87-day commodity suppression until this stuff is fixed, until these players are removed, until this behavior is policed, we will not go higher. Why would we? The higher we go, they will sell. I mean, these people
Yeah.
are a lot of this asset. So I think it's all good. For me as a long-term holder, I'm extremely bullish on any of this policing personally. And we also saw Madeira and Zcash banned by Dubai today.
Ah, the Zcash, because they had some DAO issues
Monero
too.
and Zcash has officially been banned by the UAE.
Yeah. Well, I always say, things like privacy days were numbered. Governments hate privacy. They like to stalk on people. CTO, that was a very interesting piece of news from Marty. Tether, where do you funnel your Larsen Oil Industries money?
Yeah, exactly. I think that if Maduro had used Bitcoin instead, I'm not sure it would have made such a big difference, because then those transactions, I mean, they would get blacklisted instead. It's like North Korea's Bitcoin. And of course, they can try to wash it right and left and mix it and so on and so forth, but pretty difficult with big amounts. So I'm not sure it would have mattered so much. I agree with Marty. It's like purging the criminals out of the crypto industry. And I think that's a good thing. I think if they want to do shady stuff, they need to use cash or gold bars or something else that can't be tracked. Digital assets are on ledgers. It's forever there, and it's quite easily analyzed. Even if they try to mix it, if it's big amounts, it's usually possible to trace it.
Yeah, I think you stepped on a point there, CTO, that we need to probably stress a little bit more, and that is the portability. Okay, we know that oil is extremely hard to move around. You need these massive tankers that can be taken over by military ships. And the portability of gold to trade it is also extremely difficult to move around and requires a ton of security. So can you imagine trading oil for gold? That sounds very cumbersome. And put that against the backlight of the portability of Bitcoin. Interesting.
Exactly. Of course, it's like for a legitimate business, of course, digital currencies, digital assets are much more practical. I'm saying, like, in the hypothetical case, because that was the claim here, that, they could have used Bitcoin instead of USDT, and then they could have gotten away with avoiding the sanctions. But I'm not entirely sure that's true. I think it would have been a problem with Bitcoin as well. They would have had to use something else.
Yeah.
Well, remember, if we step back, they converted a lot of the Tether into Bitcoin.
Yes.
Talking about the 600,000 stockpile, right? So it's quite interesting. This might have been seizing remaining Tether wallets, and the US is going after that 600,000 Bitcoin.
Well, the 600,000 Bitcoin was a pair trade from gold to Bitcoin, but the oil revenue was tethered through Thron, wasn't it?
Storing years of oil trade using Tether in Bitcoin, but then they've come after and frozen, I believe, $183 million of Tether wallets associated with Madeira as well. So they're seizing the Bitcoin and freezing the Tether wallets. It's a policing operation.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the big story today. I want to talk a bit about scarcity because, people are, the other story is people are losing interest. Humans are like flies, and if there's no pollen on the flower, they move on to another flower, literally. There are 5 companies now that are worth 10x the market cap of Bitcoin. 5 companies. So, and gold is valued at 350 million Bitcoin. So when you think about that, either, and this is from Rajat Soni, either something has to catch up because it's never been so egregious in terms of the delta between the total amount of wealth in the world and how small Bitcoin continues to become over time. So the question is, which way will gravity pull us, Mando? Will Bitcoin be pulled up? And this takes us to our abundance story that's coming next. But these top 5 companies, all AI related, AI adjacent, and again, completely dwarf the market cap of Bitcoin. What happens next?
It's all those added together, though, is 10x.
Yeah.
Okay. They seem like very different trades at this point to me. Bitcoin, I don't think is really, at the moment, it's not really benefiting from the AI trend. It is frustrating at the moment. Like today, we saw gold and silver again rally because of this fight between Powell and Trump. And safe haven was like, okay, this is a good time for safe haven demand, and Bitcoin, it's kind of attempted a rally, but it's still just in this very, very narrow range. Like if you look at the Bitcoin chart, it's kind of after that initial dip down to 80K, it's just been smaller and smaller and smaller, the channel. So until we have a conclusive breakout of that channel, I think volatility feels very low. It looks like it's still in that like people have done an options trade, right? Like that's what it looks like still to me, where like the volatility is being massively suppressed at the moment. You're muted, James.
CTO, I don't know if you have a chart here, but
I
talk
do
about
have a
that
chart.
flat little piece, 57 days at this, call it 91K, 92K, 90K range. It is totally asleep. But I know, and Mando correctly talked about the channel, because when you get into that kind of cloud that's compressing, it's going to break one way or the other. Eventually, the question is when. Tell us when it's going to break, CTO.
Absolutely. So it's getting really exciting. It was a good time to have a break because nothing has happened here the past month. But now it's very clear. It's very, very clear. Price is in this range here. And what the first thing we have to note here is what didn't happen. So this started to look like this would turn into a head and shoulders with the right shoulder over here and a breakdown sometime around the new year. But that didn't happen. That never confirmed. So this never became a head and shoulders pattern. Instead, price ran up to the top of the range again and rejected on exactly the same level as the previous time. I put it here at 93,860. So price is in a range between about 94,788 and 84,788 and 93,860. And as you said, James, it's going to break out. And which direction we will have to see. But I could definitely see this going in an upside breakout, because I think we will talk about that later. A lot of people have given up now. Crypto is really boring. It has dropped. Everyone is in AI and silver and gold and so on. And that could perhaps be when we pick up momentum again. Or we get a downside breakout, then we have another leg down. Or we could bounce again at the bottom. Marty, you sent an interesting Wyckoff chart. Could get one more touch at the bottom and then up from there. So I'm monitoring this range. And when it breaks out, I'm going to take action. If this breaks on the upside, I'm in again. If it breaks on the downside, okay, there's one more leg down probably. So it's very clear now. It's not confusing anymore. Very clear strategy. Rectangle can be a bottom formation. We can absolutely turn around here and move up, but then we have to break the upside of the range. It can also be a continuation pattern. Then we break the downside and one more leg down. For me, as cheaper the Bitcoin, the better. I would love another leg down, but if we get a leg down, leg up, I'm on it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, CTO. Well said.
Yeah. Marty, what's your take? Are we breaking up to the upside?
Firstly, I've been waiting for this week. In my community, we've been waiting for this week for, months. This is a pivotal week, guys. This January 15th date has been pending since late November. Remember, we have a whole lot of things happening. On the January 5th, Binance moved jurisdiction to Abu Dhabi, right? They went right under the radar, which was a big day for anybody who follows the markets, but they've moved to the ADGM. So Binance is now officially regulated and therefore can't do as much shady business. And if you'll notice, the market has substantially changed. If you're a trader or scalper, you'll see that the market making movements, everything has slightly changed since January 5th. So January 1st feels to me like the beginning of the bull run, in my opinion, from a liquidity perspective. January 5th, Binance goes under Abu Dhabi control. Then we have market structure, which obviously is the most pivotal law in all of crypto history, which is, the legal green stamping of crypto as, or obviously blockchains as commodities, blockchain tokens as commodities, legal commodities, and then the definition of security tokens, access tokens, utility tokens, etc. Once that passes, I believe you'll see a floodgate like you've never believed. So I feel like we're being held here using dealer hedging I call it commodity suppression, just like they do with silver and gold for many, many years. Anybody in silver and gold knows very much this frustration, where every time you move up, it seems to come thumping down with aggression. This is typical commodity suppression using, delta neutral hedging from the dealers. And like David said, if you've been watching his posts, it's all about gamma. At some point it doesn't become valuable to them, and then they will release it. And that date is looking like January 29th, potentially, or this Friday, one of the two dates. But that explains where we are, and that's typically how the wipe-off is. That's what the wipe-off is. When I talk about a wipe-off, I'm talking about large participants, whales, institutional, their distribution, their intent to accumulate the asset. So it all makes sense. We're in the wipe-off accumulation, just like CTO says. The only question now is whether they run at the late longs. All of the leveraged longs that have accumulated since, November, when this started, will they come and try and flush them, or are they unable to do that because of the Binance change? Potentially, they can't do these deep flushes and large volatility moves like they used to do. And so we might see a slow build up until, the dealer hedging becomes unprofitable. And then we'll see a markup back to resist. I mean, global liquidity right now is saying 124,075 is the price of Bitcoin. So we could return there very fast, in my opinion.
And we'll get to the macro and some global liquidity in a second. I do want to talk about, again, the intersection between AI. There was a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks that has some people a little bit confused. You got Elon Musk saying, no, you don't need to save for retirement. There's going to be abundant everything. We know we are heading into maybe a post-labor economy with AI and robots and all that type of stuff. And as labor becomes increasingly irrelevant, prosperity is created without jobs. Wages will stagnate. Fiat will go to zero, which we know anyway. And traditional savings will fall. But there is one asset that doesn't depend on human work. It doesn't depend on governments. It doesn't depend on productivity, etc. And this guy, Brad Long, says, and we always heard this over the years, even 0.1 Bitcoin or 0.21 Bitcoin actually matters. But 0.21 Bitcoin in a post-labor world with infinite abundance, but only a little bit of scarcity, that 0.21 Bitcoin could matter a lot. Again, abundance is coming, scarcity is disappearing, but the question is Bitcoin the one exception? Mando, I'm going to give you that prickly pear first. What do you believe?
No, I believe in this. I believe Bitcoin's going to be a great asset to own over the next decade. It's just strange that it continues to be in this weird channel, right? Like we've been talking about this literally for months now, that it's underperforming. Gold hitting another all-time high today, or getting close to it at least. It needs to get that back, that correlation. And it still perplexes me why it's broken down. Like every single day I look at this and go like, yes, Bitcoin is the best asset to own because it's, like you said, it's digital, it's easy to store, it's easy to send than gold. Like it's actually it's an asset built for the age of AI at the same time as having that sort of scarcity. So I'm still in CTO's camp of wait and see here. Like I haven't got back into the market aggressively since I got out when it was at 100K. But I am every day perplexed at why this has not caught back on as a trend.
Can I add one thing? One thing that I found very useful for myself I fell for many times. Like I saw some investment opportunity and I felt, oh, wow, I understand exactly this. It should really move. And I buy it and then nothing happens. And nothing happens. And then I kind of gave up. And then it moved. So it wasn't wrong. We were just too early. And I've learned from that to be more patient, that we kind of see this so clearly and then we don't understand why it doesn't move. And perhaps it's because not enough other people see it yet, but they might later. So yeah, it could be that that analysis is exactly correct. It just will move later. And that's one thing that been useful for me, so I don't give up too early.
Yep. Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Marty, any thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
0.2 on Bitcoin. Is that a big enough bag for the next decade? And
Yeah,
I always
stick
get
with my theory.
paranoid. And one thing I do want to say here is, things are changing so fast in the world. And it's controversial, could Bitcoin be displaced? There's been a lot of chatter out there as well. It's like, oh, the technology is too old. It's too slow. It's not going to make it. We need a more decentralized, more encrypted solution than Bitcoin.
I mean, I stick with my theses. First of all, Bitcoin is a digital vault. It's a bank vault. It's the new bank vault. It's intended to be slow and secure. I don't think it needs to be faster. I don't think it needs to be change at all. Like, I agree with Michael Saylor. The least we change on Bitcoin, the better at this point. That's its job. That's its role, is to store money, to store value. And we always complain when it goes sideways, but we want it to be a store of value. So it's a little contradictory. The minute it becomes a store of value, we all freak out that it's not going up. It's up from 16,000. Let's be very clear, 16 to 90,000, a massive jump. So like CTO says, I agree with, we need to be more patient. In my opinion, as well, you can't compare to other markets. Other markets are regulated, extremely regulated by jurisdictions all around the world. Crypto is unregulated. It's a wild west. It always has been. And we're working, David Sachs, Loomis, and the representatives are working day and night. They were in all weekend deliberating this Clarity Act to try and regulate crypto. Once it's regulated, I believe we will see its full potential. Until then, it'll be an accumulation. But I'll stick to my thesis. I think it goes up in binary numbers: 1632, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024. I think it's heading for 1 million. A Bitcoin that's far, the 0.21 Bitcoin completely makes sense to me. In my opinion, that's what's going to happen.
1024, that's a tech number too.
That's $1 million in 24, correct.
Oh, I know that, but the 1024 is like,
Yep.
Getting back to bits and bytes. Let's move on. There's other stuff happening too, and this goes back to the yawn session where people are actually bored. It's like, oh, what the hell's going on here? And if you look at YouTube viewership, it has dropped to its lowest level since January 21 from Solid Intel. And I don't know if you feel that in your communities, but interest is down. And Will Clemente, we saw the Bitcoin therapist lose his mind before Christmas, which is funny. And he's the therapist, and he even got frustrated with this action. And then Will Clemente, this environment is literally what Bitcoin was created for. The president is coming after the Fed chair. Metals are ripping, as we saw gold and silver through the moon. As sovereigns diversify reserves, stocks and risk assets at record highs, geopolitical risk rising. If Bitcoin can't catch a bid soon, then I don't know. CTO, to you first. What do you think of Will's state here? It's like he's like, what the hell's going on? We are overdue for a move.
Yeah, I mean, when the last optimist gives up, that's the bottom. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, of course, it should move from a logical perspective. Clearly, people are selling, so it doesn't move, but this can change quickly. At one point, it will. There's no doubt in my mind that the technology, the concept, and so on will survive. So, I mean, this volatility is great.
Yeah. What would you say? What did you say, Amanda, to Will? Say the bid is coming soon, or just
that's what I've been saying so far as well. I'm not in the sort of world where I'm going to predict when it's going to come. I think we maybe need a more broader move across all markets for like Bitcoin to suddenly see this sort of move now. I feel like it's actually being harmed almost by everything else hitting all-time high, But yeah, I think if we were to see like maybe a move down in stocks, we might see a move in Bitcoin here. But for right now, it's kind of not helping that everything else is hitting all-time high while Bitcoin isn't.
Good stuff. All right, let's go on to the next little bit of good news. And Marty, you've probably seen this too. We're seeing wallets like sharks accumulating like mad. The whales are back in. The good news here is the long-term distribution has slowed significantly, which we saw over on-chain ever since about mid-December, 10th of December. the long-term holder Bitcoin distribution has decelerated fast, and net outflows have rolled up over from the extreme levels. We had record selling for a record long period of time, and now we just need the ETFs to kick back in. But this is at least a positive. And again, when you look at these periods of big selling, they only last a finite period of time. We had a tiny little green bump there in the middle of the selling. Let me see if I can pull up that exact month. I got to zoom in. Between July 2025 and end of August, big sell-off. Tiny bump in September, and then a big sell-off again. But if you take that whole period, we had 7 pure months of heavy selling by the long-term holders, which equates to what happened in 2024 to early 2025, and also before that. So again, this cycle is very different. The selling came in fits and starts, which is correlated to Bitcoin being above 100K, hitting 120K. And in terms of the calendar of the timing of the 4-year cycle, which was the signal, because all the long-term holders, as we found out after the fact, the big bag holders, the OGs, they all got on the phone with each other and said, hey, you going to sell? Yeah, I'm going to sell. You going to sell? Yeah, I'm going to sell. And they all decided to sell. But considering the amount that was actually sold, I'm surprised Bitcoin didn't fall further. What do you think, Marty?
Yeah, I think this is, I agree with you. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy thesis. I think when large enough influencers say sell, then specifically for technical reasons, then people will follow. But you guys, did you see over the weekend, we've got Fidelity and CZ of Binance talking of super cycles, claiming the 4-year cycle is over. If you map that chart you have to the actual liquidity cycle, you'll see we're exactly where we are. We're in a macro bottom. People have never been more broke than they have been over the last few months. So they needed to sell. All people that needed to sell sold. That's where we are right now. In my opinion, the super cycle started on January 1st. We'll have long extended bull runs with short, violent pullbacks, much like the SPY. I think Bitcoin starts trading like the SPY from this year.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Okay.
That I think the bigger news is the Jerome Powell being sued in court.
We'll get to that in a second. I do want to talk about another thing because
go ahead.
At least in the state of California, we've had and places like the UK and different regimes around the world where they threaten to jack taxes on high net worth people, do unrealized capital gains, confiscate wealth. Very Orwellian stuff, but they did a little test of a little experiment in California in 2025 where they said they'd take 5% off the billionaires, which includes things like wealth you wouldn't imagine. So the voting power for Sergey and Larry from Google is 20x a normal share.
Right.
So the government would take, imagine you got 1 million shares. The government sees it as 20 million shares, which meant that they would not be able to afford to pay the tax bill if they stayed. They ran. And so did Peter Thiel, Chamath, David Sachs, Palmer Luckey from Anduril. All the California billionaires, at least half of them, according to Chamath, have left over $1 trillion in value. And now we're seeing, I always say money gives you wings. People are fleeing high tax regimes, places that aren't safe, or authoritarian regimes to places that are safer, like Dubai is probably packed to the gills right now. You have this might be old news because I thought if you held Bitcoin for over a year in Portugal, it was tax-free anyway. I thought crypto was tax-free. But anyway, Mando, to you first. Are you noticing the big global money flight right now around the world?
To tax jurisdictions? Yeah, it feels that way, right? It's happening in the US at the moment, obviously, with what's happening in California. And then it's been happening for a while, though. Like, I think it's some of these like Western economies are kind of maturing and the debt is getting so high that they're having to come in there and tax the wealthy very, very high. So, but Marty, do you mind just muting? I think there's maybe an echo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes. Good now.
And that is causing them to kind of increase capital gains pretty high on a bunch of different people at the moment. Like the whole California thing is stemmed from the idea that essentially the fiscal situation there is not going that well, and that's the case in the UK. It's the case in France at the moment. A lot of Northern European countries are having this sort of issue. So I think this flight to other countries is only really accelerating. You see where all the millionaires have moved over the last few years. It's been to places with better tax regimes. UAE, I think, has been the number one, but there's been various other ones, including like Portugal, Switzerland, Italy had a low tax regime for a little bit, and a few other places in Asia, like Singapore. So I think this is going to be a trend that continues for a long time.
And it was started actually during C-19, when people had the excuse like, I don't need to be in the office. And they started bouncing and going to Florida, say out of New York and other places, from California to Nevada and Texas and all these tax-free places. And then they say, it's not that bad here. And then they stayed. But now it's beginning to accelerate again, a big move. CTO, what's your take on this, the flight of the bag holders?
Oh, yeah, this is very interesting. And I think there's a great opportunity in this, actually, because it's very clear now. There's two sets of countries here. One who has the idea, let's squeeze out more of the rich people that we have. Let's get them to pay more tax. That's how we're going to solve it. And then there's another set of countries who think differently. They're thinking instead, let's attract the people from these other countries. Let's get them to move here so that they pay tax here instead. They pay lower tax, but they will pay tax here instead of in their previous country. So these two sets of countries are now very clearly polarizing almost. And it's within the US also, I think. I mean, of course, James, you know US much better than me because I'm not from there. But I can see that like California versus Texas and so on. It's kind of playing out between the states as well. And in Europe, it's very clear. UK is losing a lot. They had previously something called a non-dom scheme where they tried to attract rich people. And then they removed it. Okay, what happens then? Well, all those rich people move out again. And
Russian oligarchs, by the way, tons of Russian oligarchs moved to London, I think, during this era.
Yeah, probably. And yeah, then if they remove the scheme again, those people move out. So it is super clear. So if anyone is, buying a house or something, I think carefully where you're doing that. In the UK, I read that 1% of people pay 1/3 of the tax, and 5% pay half. So if those people move out, who's going to pay for everything? And I think they haven't kind of really thought this through. It's going to be like a monumental collapse if they push this through. And then some proposals are actually implemented. They're kind of crazy. For example, Norway, unless I'm mistaken, they have an unrealized capital gains tax, like a wealth tax. So say that you're an entrepreneur, you start a successful company. You're still kind of broke. You still live in your small apartment, but your company is now worth a lot and you own 50% of it. Then they're going to tax you on that. But you're going to pay it with what? You don't have any money, barely have money for rent, right? So you have to then sell part of your company to pay the tax, even though you're still building it. And I see that this idea is taking root in many different places, and that will then obviously force those entrepreneurs to move out. They can't build a company.
And people think of it just the Peter Thiel moves out, but it's not just him. It's him, his businesses, the companies he invests in. If a VC invests in a firm, they'll say you got to move to, Sand Hill Road, Silicon Valley, etc. If they move to Texas or Florida, they say you got to move here. You cannot be far away. You got to be like a 20-minute ride away from the company.
Exactly. So you have to move your company.
Staff, all their companies, all their people, all their property taxes, all their income taxes, all gone.
Oh yeah, all that, because many times you have to move the company as well, right? So,
exactly.
So it's like it's massive impact, and I think it's like this old idea that no one's going to move. We will force them to stay and make it more difficult to move, but it's not going to work unless going like full out East Germany. You have to build a wall or something and shoot people trying to climb over. Like that's where it goes. That's where that idea ends up.
Well, they're trying to burn the boats to chase people for 10 years with their wealth as well if they do leave. Anyway, back to our next story, which is a tailwind, alpha tailwind for us. And I'll explain why in a minute. And Marty, this is in your wheelhouse too. Threats on the Fed. Jerome Powell says the Department of Justice is threatening the Fed with criminal charges because they're spending billions on an office extension or something, because they will not bow to Trump's wishes to low interest rates. And we know the midterms are coming up in November 2026, which is not too far away. We're talking 10 months and change. And the U.S. current administration wants to juice the market. This happens every time before the elections, so people feel good and they say, you know, I like the people in power. They're doing a good job. But they're trying to cut real estate mortgages. They're trying to cut interest rates. They're trying to cap credit card interest rates at 10%. They're trying to reduce taxes, increase investments. Marty, what do you make of all of this? I call it juicing the market by any means necessary in the US. And take that a step further. How can this help crypto, AI stocks, all that stuff down the line? Marty, you might be muted. Yeah.
The severity of the situation in the US is either they have to bring in income using tariffs, which Trump started very aggressively, and now you can see already the Supreme Court challenging that. I think there's a lot of asymmetric bets around that, specifically around wealthy people and the capital flight out of the US. Because if Trump's tariffs are banned or deemed illegal, then there's only one other option, and that's to tax the rich. And the rich are, running ahead of that, front running that potential. That's what I think is happening. But clearly, Trump wants to stimulate the markets. He's announced a $200 billion mortgage bond buyback. Obviously, he has Moran in the Fed trying to reduce rates, talking about 3 or 4 rate cuts he would vote for next year, whilst the majority of the Fed is voting for no cuts. I think we've got a complete shakedown going between Trump trying to stimulate the economy and push the can down the road, with potential solutions, including stablecoin and Bitcoin as a way to reset the system. But then you've got pushback from the Fed, and I think this is just literally the next move against the Fed to try and either force his hands or to get rid of him entirely. Now, look, if we can get rid of the Fed entirely, I think Trump will go on the largest money printing campaign we've ever seen in history, which will obviously play well into assets. So I think that it's going down right now. This I think is a very significant event, this threatening Jerome Powell with legal action. And the wealthy people are leaving because they're front running the Supreme Court, saying all that tariff income is false and you got to claw it back, and you can't do that. So it's a very interesting situation. Like I said, this is the week. I told you, this week or next week is the week of reckoning. Will the US be able to save itself with tariff tax, which means the eradication of the IRS, which is obviously good for people, to stimulate the economy, making the IRS into the external revenue service via tariffs? If that fails, Trump has several other ways in which he can tariff countries, but I think the market will react quite poorly. But ultimately, the US has to find a way to raise more money. They have the biggest debt situation, $1 trillion a month in interest. So how they're going to get out of that, they've got to either make money with tariffs or tax the hell out of the rich and the corporations. So I think you're going to see the rich and corporations trying to leave. Starts with California, next moves to foreign countries. But then, just like CTO says, I'm hearing the same thing from Australia. They're seeing this coming and they're clamping down too. They're not allowing these tax havens. Look at Abu Dhabi. They're not allowing Monero and Zcash. I think the whole world is starting to clamp down on that concept. It's called financial repression. You can Google it. This has happened in the 40s and the 70s. This is what's happening. So I think it's all tied together. It's all one big movement. Trump is trying to get the US out of debt and to stimulate the economy, and the existing forces are pushing back.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And a lot of people now are also considering kind of the stodgy period we've been in. Is this the time to accumulate crypto? Obviously, 2025 was a lost year, broke the 4-year cycle. That's definitively in the books now. A lot of people looking at as we saw from your chart at the beginning, CTO, bottoming. we're also beginning to see a move. I have this trading view set up where I compare Solana to every single other crypto out there, and it's up against everything today with the exception of Tesla. So Solana is making a little bit of a run. Do you think, Mando, you said you're not ready to commit yet. Is this a fake out? A lot of people are asking. Considering the 4-year cycle is broken, people are really confused. They don't know what to do. Should we go back into the market? Should we sell out of the market? Should we rotate into something else? Should we just do a little bit of safe dollar cost averaging? And what do you think the ETFs will do to this market? Because for the last month or so, Solana ETFs have had positive flows, unlike other assets.
I mean, I can tell you my portfolio is not majority crypto right now. I've been buying gold and Google. Those have been my 2 biggest buys recently. And then I did buy some Monero, although I sold some over the last couple of days. I like buying assets as they're breaking out towards all-time highs and going into price discovery. And at the moment, Bitcoin is bouncing back and we're looking for support. That can be a good time to buy, but generally I don't tend to make that much money when that happens. So I'm going to wait to see if it breaks out, particularly firstly at this full channel and then probably above kind of 100K. If it goes above 100K, I think I'd get back in decent size because I really like the narrative for Bitcoin. But I think you can get caught in get narratives for a long time. And with everything going to all-time high, like that's just what I've been doing with my portfolio. So I'm not going to sit here and say that you should go all in for crypto at this time. I do think if you're long-term and you're like, right, I want to own this for the next 10 years, and Bitcoin's a great thing to own because it will retain that sort of hedge. But the market's just broken down in a strange way recently that it's been tough for me to go back in with massive confidence. I tried to look at the breakout at 94K the other day, and I was like, this could get interesting, and then it got rejected. And I was like, okay, we're going to be in this channel for a little bit longer. So that's my base case.
And I've had this theory for a while, knowing Michael Saylor and looking at the way he smiles sometimes, I still have this nagging theory. He knows something is up. He is buying hand over fist. He bought 13,627 Bitcoin today.
$1 billion today.
Yeah, and a lot of it, of the money that was raised was from STRC, the preferred dividend. Marty, could he know something is going to happen with Bitcoin? We had somebody in the U.S. government as well, Byron, I think.
Yes,
Bitcoin. Yeah, all of a sudden he drops 100K on Bitcoin out of the blue. Do you think they know something's going on? Because for Saylor to be deploying so much capital and doing some NAV premium sales that are probably at a discount, he's in a rush to accumulate hand over fist. Mm-hmm. And remember, at this price, he bought it about 92K, 13,600 Bitcoin in a week is a lot. Tell us, Maria, what you think.
I mean, I think Bitcoin it's the only non-bearer asset in the world right now, other than physical gold, which is impossible to carry. So I think it has a massive market. Anytime there's any talk of war, geopolitics, it only plays into the hands of Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin as an asset there's nothing like it. Of course, in my opinion, I'm a trader as well as a long-term holder. My long-term holding portfolio I have not touched. It's a 10-year strategy. I think in this range, you follow the large players. This Wyckoff accumulation we're in right now started in November. Probably around November 21st was the bottom at around 80,000, and that's the time for accumulation. And you follow the large participants. Never follow crypto Twitter. Never follow small players. Never follow traders. They don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, just had to throw that in there. You follow the whales. The whales are accumulating, you accumulate. If you're out of the market now, you should be scaling in. I'm at 7 out of 10 units. I'll save 3 units for the spring, the Wyckoff spring, which I think will come over the next week. That's where I'll go pretty much fully back into my position. As a trader, I'll look to long that around 80,000, 80,800. I put my probabilities up on my page very transparently. And then obviously when you cross over the 200-day moving average, if you're a more conservative trader, like what Mando's saying, you can get back in there. That's perfectly fine. I think in the long term, it doesn't really make that much difference at $10,000 of Bitcoin. But yes, I think we're in accumulation. This is the time to enter. This is the asset to hold. The stock market is very, very overcooked. and Bitcoin is in a beautiful accumulation. I think it's the asset to buy right now, personally. And Michael Saylor seems to agree, and so does half of the representatives in the Congress. So you can sit around and and live in a fearful world, or you can seize the moment. And I think Bitcoin's price, firstly, once again, you can look at all the charts you want on Bitcoin, but it's an unregulated market. So what are charts? I think this changes radically after market structure. I don't think you'll recognize the crypto market. This is the time to accumulate. I think the last real chance to accumulate Bitcoin at these levels. Will there be a lower dive? Absolutely. The Wyckoff says we may clear the longs, which means we break those support levels, and run at those 15x longs, which could be a dive to, let's say, 85,800, maybe 83,800, maybe as deep as 79,800. Worst case scenario, they take back the whole Trump pump, but it'll be very short lived, and you might not be able to actually exercise that trade. Exchanges might go down, slippage will go to the moon, and you'll be careful. There you go.
There's a quick question here. How come MicroStrategy options are still expensive given the drop in the stock value? Because of the volatility. And by the way, treasuries, DATs, digital national treasury companies have all completely lost their butts. People have lost faith, maybe because they now have ETF access. But I think everybody's now looking at the big rotation into AI. I think that's taken a lot of oxygen. So has gold and silver, taken a lot of oxygen. But everything mean reverts, and things will come back. But I do believe, as other people believe, Saylor knows something. Something's going to give. We're going to do one last topic, and then we're going to open up to some questions. But this is something that, CTO, you pinged me, talked to me about this before we even got started. And this is what I call all roads lead to the anti-authoritarian tech stack.
I love that.
This was written by an ETH guy. I think it's David. You probably can't remember his name. But he wrote a paper that during times like what's going on in Iran right now, there's two things that matter. One, it's X, which is Twitter. And two is communication capability, which is Starlink, because these regimes shut down the internet in the country. Nobody can communicate. And that's very frustrating when you got some bad things happen. And I think it's just funny because CTO, you asked, would Tesla merge with other companies? Because it's the stuff that Shema said over the weekend. I do not believe that that's going to happen because Elon doesn't want to put a bigger target on his back by controlling one huge company that controls the whole world. That would just be bad. It's better for them to be in discrete silos like space, AI, and social, like robots and electric autonomous vehicles. They should all be separate bundles, in my opinion. I think Shamath is wrong in that one. CTO, any questions regarding this and the authoritarian tech stack, which I think is
of
funny.
course it's a huge topic, but there's so much to say. I'm of course happy to see that because in Iran a lot of people have been oppressed by a very heavy-handed regime, and if they can use modern technology to change that, I think it's fantastic. Another thing that I really reflected on is that I truly get a completely different perspective on many things if I go on X than if I go on basically all other media sources. It's been very polarizing. Like, for example, I just take the recent Minnesota example. Like all the major newspapers write one angle, and then you go on X and you see completely different story. And it's really been striking to me. And I know Elon Musk is very polarizing and so on. Half people hate him, half people love him. But I think he really has done this. The free speech platform, he has created it. And it is X only today. You go on any other platform, you see a different angle on all these events. At least that's my experience.
In fact, he just called the bluff of the European Union. They said he's rigging the system to spread certain narratives. He's going to share the code and the algorithm for X publicly so everybody can see for themselves. He is not doing anything. It's completely unbiased, which is interesting. Mando, what do you think of this anti-authoritarian tech stack and the world we live in? Because I just see the planet as more and more of a tinderbox every single day, and that's only going to get worse with the advent of AI and wealth distribution and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that too. So I think buying anything that's going to do well in a world of higher conflict, I think makes a lot of sense. Bitcoin is one of those things. I think we've got the echo again, Marty.
Weird.
So I'll just wait. So yeah, I think we'll hopefully see a decent amount of gold and silver and Bitcoin all follow that world higher. AI is kind of the unknown in that sort of world because a lot of those are stocks. So I think that could cause that could go either way in the case of war. Like if we start to see China make a move to Taiwan or something along those lines in terms of geopolitics. But I do think that should be your overarching theme. I do think some of the robotics companies make sense because they kind of apply for defense in a large way. And I think defense is going to be a big sector, let's say, for the next 50 years.
Exactly. I was always anti-military industrial complex, always anti-war stocks, etc. But in this day and age, I am looking very heavily at defense stocks, and Anduril IPO is coming this year and a few others. So it'll be super interesting. Marty, quick take, and then we'll take a few quick questions from the audience. You're muted. Yes.
Yeah, philosophically, this all goes back to the generational change, right? The 100-year cycle, the baby boomers and the silent generation, those born, before me, pretty much, and Elon Musk, Michael Saylor, my generation, James, you yourself, we're technocratic and we're taking over the world. And this is how it looks. It's not pretty at times. There'll be a lot of resistance, as I always use the expression, they'll fight like dogs. And they are doing so right now. But I mean, for the people in the audience, what does an anti-authoritarian stack look like? Okay, remember, it's like a layered set of, let's talk about it, decentralized, privacy-focused, open source, self-sovereign technologies, technologies designed to resist government censorship, surveillance, corporate gatekeeping, financial repression, I talk about it all the time, and centralized control. So understand that's what we're going through now. Elon Musk obviously is on the forefront. Starlink is an anti-authoritarian tech stack. X is an anti-authoritarian tech stack. Bitcoin is an anti-authoritarian tech stack. As you can see, it's playing out right in front of your eyes. There'll be pushback. Don't be fearful. This is part of how it happens. They will die. The older people will die. So will the PTSD from the world wars. This newer generation is not a warmongering generation. We are peace-loving. We use technology to integrate the world. We don't use war. And so we're going through the last phase of the transition. It can be scary. You can look at the Bennett chart. It goes from now to around 2030. It's going to be a potential rough spot. Bear with it. Accumulate assets. Work your ass off.
Fourth turning stuff there. We got Marty all fired up. Thank you for that. And yes, we like peace. So this is a quick question, technical question for you, maybe CTO or Marty from Turk. Can someone share, if you buy Bitcoin in a non-KYC place but paid with USDT, does it make it KYC? Does it reach back into the source of funds and track them? Asking for a friend. CTO.
Always assume that, you can't hide. You can't hide. Don't underestimate the tax authorities. They're much more competent than you maybe think. So they have a lot of tools. They're very competent people. Forget about if it's like KYC or not KYC. Report everything, pay your taxes, or it's not going to end well. Like if these countries and professional, criminal organizations with hundreds of experts, if they can't hide it, you're not going to be able to hide it. So, it's not going to work. Doesn't matter if it's KYC or not KYC. It's going to come back to you one way or another.
Marty, any technical insight there?
I think it's quite interesting. First of all, don't sell. If you don't sell, you don't have a taxable event. If you have a long-term time horizon, don't sell. If you sell for a small profit and pay 38% tax, you're making a bad trade. Always remember that. People forget that. The other things to understand, like CTO says, is AI on blockchains will be the most powerful surveillance tool of all time. You can't hide. Okay, criminals leave crypto. It's literally the opposite of what you think. You think crypto is a place to hide? No, crypto is literally the greatest place to be found. And I think that's a big misunderstanding that is coming to light in 2026. Play by the rules. This is an alternative, anti-authoritarian tech stack. Buy it and hold it. If you're looking to make more dollars in crypto, well, you may be lucky enough to do that, but 99% of traders lose money. You hold this asset. This asset's going up in value. Right now, there's a very small barrier between stablecoin and use for goods and services through Visa partnerships, etc. But that will fall away. I expect in 6 months' time, you'll start to see native crypto being adopted by merchants across the world, specifically in the Western world. Actually, in Abu Dhabi right now is probably the strongest case for that, which means you don't even have to go back to dollars. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. If you have a Bitcoin, you have a Bitcoin. Stop comparing it to dollars so much, because remember, the most volatile thing on earth right now is the value of the dollar. So anything priced in dollars that has volatility is probably dollar volatility. Okay, these are very little known facts that confuse people a lot. So we're looking for hygienic markets in crypto and people to slowly move away from coming into crypto to make more dollars. You need to accumulate crypto if you are a crypto believer. Anti-authoritarian tech stack. That's your goal. Go ahead.
Yeah, good stuff. XMR top 3 crypto by 2030. I don't think so. We've talked about privacy before as well. Privacy coins will never be able to take down or be able to attract institutional money, which I've always said from the very beginning. What is a good call option on Marvel? I won't answer that here. That's very tactical. Is a question here: is Sol anti-authoritarian?
100%.
Okay. Who needs sniper suits?
Any layer one is absolutely anti-authoritarian. It cannot be seized. Any layer one token. A layer 2 token is not. Understand that. A layer 2 token can be seized instantly. It's centralized.
Yeah, I saw a question up here regarding Monad crypto. Monad, basically, from my models, the tokenomics are horrible. It's very bad launch, whale dumping. It's overhyped as an ETH killer. It's not an ETH killer. We already know what the ETH killer is. Any thoughts on Monad, Mando? It's just so like your name. It's unbelievable. You are Mr. Monad.
Mr. Monad. They probably approached me at some stage for a marketing deal. No, I'm not really interested in Monad. Like it's maybe interesting tech, but there's not enough scale. It feels like we don't need more block space right now. We need users of that block space. I think Solana's an interesting play, obviously. The privacy coins seem to be amongst the strongest sub-narratives still at the moment. Zcash went through a very strange week, right? There was a fight with the core devs and they seem to have spun off a new company to help build out the main wallet there. The price action, it kind of went lower, and then Monero broke out of a multi-year trend, slightly going higher. Although this Dubai thing is kind of interesting. Interestingly, Mert is based in Dubai. So his ability to shill Zcash, I think, is going to be pretty difficult now.
And I know, I was thinking about the same thing myself.
I know he's having a hard day. He's pulling out his last credit.
And the chief MERT officer, the chief marketing officer for Zcash over the last 6 months, it was incessant.
That's a shot.
It did really well. But it shows you the power of one guy, really, to push it out there. I thought it was fascinating. Very good observation. Chainlink. Thoughts on Chainlink? After what happened on 10/10, I think we all learned something about not only the importance of oracles, but also the frailty of oracles. I always go back to utilities and utility tokens. It's a service provider. It's like people thought in the late 90s, people could make a ton of money on DSL providers for high-speed internet. They never made any money, because it becomes a utility. That's the way I view these things like oracles. Anybody want to take Chainlink? CTO?
Yeah, I mean, Chainlink was one of the projects where I got interested in altcoins, but that was, when was it? 2017 or 2018, something like that, when I first heard about it. Then it was revolutionary. Now, as you say, now it's a utility. It's one of many. I haven't actually looked at the link chart for at least this year. So yeah, I don't really see how they need to come up with something new if they should make a massive move from here. I think you're muted.
We'll take all the questions. Thank you for that, CTO.
I mean, Chainlink is not a blockchain. That's the biggest misnomer. Anybody on TikTok telling you Chainlink's a blockchain, you've been gaslit. Chainlink is the decentralized Oracle network. Yep. It's not a blockchain, so it'll never be a commodity. So the risk under market structure laws, if you run an AI, will Chainlink be a utility token or a commodity under new market structure law? It'll tell you it'll be a utility token, which means it'll be under surveillance as a security, so that it'll go through security processes. Like I always said, Chainlink should probably just go public as a stock, same as Ripple. I'm not sure why they have a token. Also, Chainlink is dependent on blockchain. So why invest in the thing dependent on the blockchain? Why not invest in the L1 of the blockchain? I don't understand either.
Yeah, gold, pure gold there from Marty. Thank you for that. And this is another spicy topic from Spiraling. It seems like we're heading into World War III, though. Not going to be good if we are not prepared. I do expect a black swan this year, because we get one every year, probably in the first half of the year, maybe in the first quarter. But the world is smart enough to avoid World War III. But we do have that tinderbox happening all over. We've got the Middle East, we got Ukraine, Russia, we have China, Taiwan, things happening in South America. It's just, there's a lot of heat all over the place. But no, World War III is not something you need to be worried about. And the future of war is also very different. It'll be about taking down networks and using drones and, blocking signal. That I think that the future of war is very different from what we probably know in the past. Anybody want to tackle this? Should we be concerned? Marty.
I mean, I don't want to take away from the air, but I think we've already been through World War III. I think it's been going on pretty much since 2008, in my opinion. I think it's a financial monetary war. It's a cultural war. I think we're seeing a hemispherical war. I think it's been going on already. We don't bomb countries anymore because we realized we've got to rebuild them. So why bomb them? Never bomb infrastructure you're going to have to rebuild. I think it's never been more true with the internet-based societies. So I think World War III has been going on. It's a monetary, sovereign, reserve currency war, in my opinion. It's a manufacturing war. All the things that have been going on, I think, are part of a war, including COVID, in my opinion. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Obviously, memory is red hot. DRAM prices through the roof. But I think if you're chasing that trade, like Mando says, he likes to chase things and making new all-time highs. I think there are some fundamental changes happening between NVIDIA and Samsung partnering up, which could impact Micron's dominance right now. But that's a longer story out there.
We're in a very interesting situation on the charts. I don't know if you guys are watching, but we're now retesting those resistance lines at 92,200. Which is very anti the Wyckoff. Wyckoff says we should trade down now to 85. So this is interesting. I call it break the Wyckoff. Can we break the Wyckoff? It's happening in real time.
CTO, you're up. You want to zoom into like a 5-day time frame and see what we're looking at here?
Yeah, the institutions want to dip us, and it looks like we're fighting back.
Yeah. So what Martin showed or talked about earlier is that if this is a Wyckoff distribution, there should be one more leg down here. But I mean, for me, I will just play what happens. If this break on the upside, great. Okay, we have an upside rectangle breakout. If it breaks on the downside, okay, one more leg down. I don't need to predict it, and I can't miss it. So I'm very relaxed here. I think a lot of people get very stressed. There's no need to be stressed. Bitcoin is not going to go to $1 million with a trend down. And without, a number of very beautiful and clear breakouts along the way. And it doesn't matter that much. Okay, so I have this level here at 93,860. It doesn't really matter if it's there or, Mando, you talked about 100K, it's up here. If this is going to go to $1 million, guys, okay, let's look. Where is $1 million? Where is $1 million? $1 million is up here. And people are stressed, like, where should I be here? You can't even see it. You can't even see it on the screen here. Where is 91K? Where is 100K? You can't see it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So
Doesn't matter at all.
Try to not get to big drawdowns and try to get in when it's going up. That's it.
Exactly.
I'm not stressed at all.
And there's tons of exponential stuff. The question is regarding Pith as well, like Chainlink, same thing. It's a utility. We'll see. But with that, everybody, we've gone an hour. I want to thank everybody for this. There isn't a lot of news happening because there's not a lot of price action happening. But we try and set the stage. One final question for the whole gang here. Yes or no? New Bitcoin all-time high in 2026. Mando. Yep, that's a yes.
I'm going to go for yeah. I think it could be still. We need, in my opinion, to get out of this like rut, we need something to like almost break, or like there needs to be a shift in global markets. At the moment, everything else going higher and Bitcoin going sideways. We need one of those to just chill out for a little bit, or like people get worried about them, and then we move back.
I love it what CTO said. When the last optimist dies, that's when we go up. That was so good. CTO, new all-time high for Bitcoin this year.
Yeah, before I answer, I will just say that my guesses is not input to my own trading in any way or form. But if I would have to guess, I will guess yes. I'm an optimist.
Yeah. Marty, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I think so too. We just need, with the key ingredient, all we need is the ETF flows to come back, which will come back at the market structure. You look at all the big American banks that, like the top 8 banks, own half of all banking assets and represent all the high net worth people. And Bank of America says 4% into Bitcoin. If just Bank of America did that, we go straight to a new all-time high, 130K overnight. That's the story, everybody. Be patient. Markets are designed to take wealth from the impatient and give it to the patient. Be the patient. Probably said that really badly, but
Zoom
thank
out.
you all.
Zoom out.
Have a great week, my friends. Don't forget links below for these legends. Thank you for all the good info. Thank you. Good night, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the week.